Thanks, Nikki. Believe it or not, that's not actually the worst introduction I've ever had. I was introduced at an event a couple of years ago with the immortal line, "Please now welcome the fruit in the suit, Steve Bustin." Walked on thinking it's sort of funny, sort of offensive, and not completely true. So I walked to the microphone and said, look, for reasons of transparency, I should just point out, I'm not wearing a suit, this is a blazer and chinos. But it got me thinking about the way we introduce ourselves, the words and phrases we choose to introduce ourselves, and the words and phrases that other people choose to introduce us. And I think there are a couple of issues. The first one is that quite often we will choose the words and phrases that we like, that we feel comfortable with, that we understand, when actually we should be talking the language, using the words that the audience understands. Let me give you an example. I used to work in public relations, PR. When I introduced myself and said, I work in PR, I assumed everybody knew what that meant. A few people would sidle up to me afterwards and say, Steve, what do you actually do? And I thought, okay, they're not getting this. So I became a media communications expert. Problem solved. And actually, I realised those who thought I did know what PR meant thought I was either Malcolm Tucker from The Thick of It or Eddie from Absolutely Fabulous. And I'm neither, sweetie. The other problem, actually, when you come to talk about who you are, is that you don't always get the simplicity of language you need. If you're struggling to get that simplicity, find a friendly 6-year-old. Ask them to explain what you do. Children find a clarity and directness of language that we can all learn from. Now, I'm not then saying you come and talk to your audience like 6-year-olds. 8 to 10-year-olds, maybe. But actually, you have a simplicity that people will understand straight away. Now, the other big problem, I think, with the way we introduce ourselves is that we don't always differentiate ourselves. I think there's a real issue here that we don't always say why you should listen to me as a speaker or why we should buy from me if we're talking business. Little exercise for you. When you get back to your computer, go to the homepage of your website, copy the text and paste it into a Word document. Then use the find and replace function to strip out every mention of you or your business name and replace it with that of your nearest competitor. I can almost guarantee that you will then have described your nearest competitor in glowing and accurate terms. And it's because you haven't differentiated yourself. You haven't actually explained what makes you different. Quick straw poll. How many of you use the word creative in your introduction? I'm a creative. I use creative solutions. A couple of people. I think the word creative is probably becoming meaningless. It's apprentice speak. It's one of those words that's a bit like nice or leading. And I think actually, if you have to tell me you're creative, you're probably not. The other example, I think, is passion or passionate. And I know this is going to be a little bit more controversial in this room. If you have to tell me you're passionate, you're not. We should be able to tell that you're passionate or creative from the way you talk, the way you dress, the way you enter a room. It should be immediately obvious. If you have to point it out, sorry, you're not. Third straw poll. How many of you have a standard introduction on your computer at home? That you roll out, that you give out to I'm surprised at you. I thought you wouldn't. I think a standard introduction is a disservice to the audience. Every audience is different. In the same way that every time you introduce yourself to anybody, you're meeting somebody new, somebody different. Every introduction should be targeted, tailored for that audience. So if you've got a standard introduction on your computer, my recommendation is to delete it. Now, I said at the beginning that I had had a couple of bad introductions in my time. The other poor one was actually earlier this year, where I was at an event in Birmingham. It was in a theatre, I was in the wings, and the introduction was done in voiceover. And I heard the voice boom around the auditorium. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your next speaker, Barbara Smallbones. I don't mind being called Barbara. I've been called worse. But I just thought, what really annoyed me was the fact that the compere was stood next to me as he said it, holding the script I'd just given him. Moral of the story, you're not always in control of your introduction. Go with the flow. Anyway, I have been Barbara Smallbones, the fruit not in the suit. Thank you for listening.